right foot for the Giants, and now we get to talk to the skipper, Bob Melvin, joining us. FP is in for Dibs here on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Bob, how you doing this afternoon?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing it. Really, really appreciate it. Give us a little something on the arc of what you see right now in Kyle Harrison, because that last night was one of the best outings he's ever had.
Yeah, no, I agree with you too. And you know, we've been using our bullpen quite a bit here recently, and it kind of in need of some deeper starts. It certainly did yesterday. You know, he tends to throw some pitches because he gets some swings and misses. Every now and then he'll walk a guy. Didn't walk anybody yesterday. You know, went out there and got us into the seventh inning, which was huge. And that's a pretty good line he navigated his way through with only one run. So really good outing of Kyle yesterday.
Skipper, first of all, nice win last night. Way to go. That was fun to watch in the ninth inning, or in the extra innings. I'm sure it wasn't fun for you, but it was a nice comeback for you guys. Talk about Patrick Bailey last night and put down all the right digits and how he's evolved into a catcher, and you as a former catcher and what you see on him on a nightly basis.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, you know, it's come in last year, probably wasn't expected to be here. You know, ended up getting a huge workload as the year went on. And, you know, established himself as a framer, as a guy that can hit both sides of the plate, you know, a true two-way catcher, which you don't see a whole lot of. And now here in his second year has really taken kind of the game calling and the leadership to a new level. And these guys really trust him. You know, a lot of these guys he's come up with, whether it was Keaton or Kyle and these guys, and, you know, knows them really well. So that always plays well too. And when you come from the system, that's fantastic as well. There's, you know, a pride factor involved in being a Giant when you come through the system and make your way to the big leagues. So he's all about it for us, and, you know, doing a great job for us.
Can you talk about managing in extra innings with a runner on second base? Because I'm still learning how to do this. I don't know if it's still learning in progress for you, but with the runner on second, whether you're the home team or you're the visiting team, the extra inning strategy with a ghost runner, how do you go about it?
Yeah, you know, it's a little different when you're at home. I mean, you can kind of navigate and see what transpired the inning before. On the visiting side, it's really tough to bunt and just play for one run, because with man on second, nobody out, you know, it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but, you know, you're giving outs away when one run is kind of almost expected. You know, it's a little more difficult on the road. Now at home, you know, they score two runs, and you know, it feels like that's a lot. But when you have a runner on second base, you get an early hit, you feel like you're in pretty good shape anyway. So, you know, Hader was out of the game. We got a little bit deeper into their bullpen. You know, Wisely getting a hit right away was huge. And then we put together some really good at-bats and won a ball game. So we've been really good in these late inning games here, especially at home. I think we've got several walk-offs already to start. So we feel pretty confident in extra innings here at home.
Bob Melvin joining us here on 95.7 The Game. Bo Mel, no secret, the struggles this year of Austin Slater. What do you think last night meant to him?
Yeah, it was huge for him. I mean, you know, to get a game winner and a walk-off like that, especially against, you know, a righty, which he typically doesn't play against, that's big for him and his confidence. Now, you know, it's not a ton of at-bats. So, you know, he's had some injuries, had an uneven spring, came back a little late, and, you know, and then had the concussion. And so it hasn't really gone smoothly for him. You know, consistent at-bats are big at the big leagues, and he really hasn't gotten them. So, you know, his at-bats have looked better here since he's come back the last time. You know, drew a walk and got on a couple times in Texas and was you know, right in the middle of a win there. So to be able to get that hit yesterday for him, I think is huge. And now settling in and getting some better at-bats.
Bob, this isn't fair to him, but because of the transaction last week, he's become the face of Luis Matos being sent down, and a lot of fans have, I think, been scratching their head about that. Can you take us through why that transaction was and what is the plan in the near term for Matos?
Look, Luis Matos is going to have a long career for us, and I don't know where we'd be without him. For that period of time, he was player of the week. He was as hot as anybody in baseball. And it was huge for us. So he's a part of this team right now, even though he's not here. You got to make some tough decisions sometimes. He slowed down a little bit, obviously. He can get a little swing happy at times. You know, that the key for him is going to be able to shrink the zone, draw some walks, and get good pitches to hit. But he's a terrific talent, and he's going to be a Giant for a long time. You know, it's a little unfair with Slate early on, not getting a ton of at-bats and being not being healthy and so forth, getting off to a slow start. And then when, Luis has such a big couple weeks, there's some tough decisions need to be made. But Slate's been a giant here for a while now, knows his role, knows his niche, and, starting to get some better at bats. So sometimes it isn't always perfect. And sometimes we understand that, what Luis created and what he did was exciting. But again, he's going to be back here at some point in time. And like I said, he's going to be a giant for a long time.
Yeah, Skipper, you've been a manager for a long time. I mean, the injuries that you guys had, so many of them all at once, all of a sudden your organizational depth is getting exposed and you got a lot of young guys that are getting the job done. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit. Like the goal is to tread water till the cavalry gets back, right?
It is, and nothing's been perfect here for us. We've been exciting and fun to watch at times. We've been not so much, early in the season. We've been all over the place kind of, but with the amount of injuries that we've had, we're starting to get some guys back, which is key for us. Lamont's going to be huge for us, and Nick Ahmed's starting to play. Tom Murphy's not here too, and so there's quite a few guys that are still out there in the position player. And then on the pitching end, obviously, with Blake getting injured again, and then Alex Cobb's going to throw a bullpen today. He got slowed down there for a while, and then Robbie Ray's coming too. So, like you said, the cavalry will be here at some point in time. And that's when I believe we're going to do our best work is probably, in the second half when everybody's healthy. But like you said, the contributions we're getting from some of our younger guys, which has been really cool to watch, whether it's Wisely, Ramos has been on fire, and I don't know where we'd be without him either. And Casey Schmitz contributed as well. It's cool to see these guys come up here in a time when it looks kind of bad as far as where we are with the injuries, and they're doing great and they're helping us win ball games. So it's exciting when you have guys like that here, and we'll see how long everybody's here. But like you said, we're playing decent baseball at times, and you look at the division, you look at the wild card and how many teams are involved, it's almost like a horse race where everybody's kind of posturing and getting themselves into position. And where we are right now is not a horrible place to be.
Bob, this city, this fan base, the fan base of both baseball teams here in town have gotten to know you so well over the years, and I think you've always struck everyone as a pretty level-headed guy. So it caught everyone's attention last week in Arizona post-game when you had the tone that you had. What led to that? Was that a message you wanted to send? Was it just an in-the-moment kind of reaction? What was going on there?
Well, you get to a point where you get frustrated and your emotions come out, and sometimes the team needs to hear stuff. So, it's happened a few times this year. I don't necessarily, tell everybody what's going on behind closed doors all the time, but it's just everybody gets emotional at times, and it has to come from a place that isn't choreographed, or it just has to come true emotion. And sometimes you get a little upset, and you see how your team reacts to it. So it's happened a few times this year, but we've had discussions as a group, I think, that are healthy. We have hitters meetings every day. We prepare for games with our pitching group too. So there are a lot of guys around here that have some leadership qualities, and our coaching staff is always at the forefront here.
Davey Johnson used to tell me all the time that he'd have the team meetings the day before his ace pitched. that was his number one rule. But Bob, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's the mental stuff that probably gets to you, right? Because I had the ass after that game too. I mean, it was just that there was so many little mistakes, the mental mistakes, the focus. Because those are the only things you can control on a daily basis, right? Is your attitude, your effort, and your focus. The physical things are going to happen, but I'm sure it was the mental things that were piling up for you.
Exactly. And look, I don't like those things to come out. I mean, sometimes they do, but it's just happens over the course of 162 games. If you did something like that every day, every time you have a bad game, no one would ever listen to you. So you have to kind of pick your spots and do it, like I said, when it's real emotion, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I do agree. Sometimes when you have your best starter going the next day, it gives you a little bit of an edge, and that's in the back of your mind every now and then as well.
Bob Melvin joining us here on 95.7 The Game. Bo Mel, we see that Matt Chapman is back in the lineup tonight. How's he doing, and how does that change things?
Yeah, look, I mean, especially with a guy like with Jordan on the mound, that the ball's on the ground. Not the case; he hasn't done a good job over there. But we brought Matt in here because he's one of the elite defenders in all of baseball and has been for a long time. So it's when you have these hamstring things, especially with what happened with Conforto and with Lamont, you want to be careful. He felt like he could have played last night. I think it's always a prudent thing to do to give him one more day. We did give him yesterday, and I think he's raring to go today. So it's always nice, as a pitching staff, to know that when you hit the ball over the left side to where he is, he's probably going to gobble it up. And he's made so many key plays for us this year, too. So it's nice to have him back in the lineup.
Bob, speaking of the lineup, this is a comment and a question we get from listeners a lot in terms of how that lineup comes to be. I think the perception now is there's a computer upstairs and it spits out a lineup. And there's been some back and forth discussion even recently about, you, Farhan, a computer. How does the lineup come together every night?
Well, it's not a computer. We're trying to get the best lineup we possibly can on a particular night. And earlier in the season, we had basically a set lineup almost every night. There was some changes for righties and lefties, and every team does that. It didn't work for a while, and we didn't play our best baseball when we weren't beat up, and we did have a fairly set lineup. So, now with the injuries, obviously it's going to look a little bit different from day to day. We had 4 guys, I think, yesterday that were from AAA, so that's going to look different. But you also want to play a hot hand, and sometimes you give some times at the top of the lineup for guys to iron some things out. Right now, we're trying to get some guys up there that their on-base average is good, so the guys behind them, they're on base a lot, and the guys behind them can, hopefully knock them in. And, so every day and, week to week, month to month, it's going to change some based on the way guys are performing. So there's always a balance in what is a set lineup and what you think the best particular lineup is on a certain day.
Boma, we'll let you run, but real quick, can you give us a Blake Snell update? And also, how important is him turning this around? How important is that to your success later in the year?
Yeah, it's going to be key. But if you look at his track record, he's always been a slow starter, and his second halves have been off the charts. So, and with no spring training and, then getting hurt and, it just hasn't, gone his way to this point in time. But once he gets settled in and gets a few outings in a row, and hopefully that's fairly soon. I think he's playing catch again today. I think we're going to target a bullpen for him here pretty soon, probably have a couple of those, and then maybe some sort of simulated game or something and get him back in there. But in the second half, it is dominant. And even last year when he won the Cy Young, early on it wasn't great. He always finds himself and pitches really well when you really need him to. So there's a lot more in there for Blake. We need to get him healthy. We need to get a couple of good outings under his belt, and then you'll see what he has to offer, which is pretty significant.
Bob, great to have you, man. Thank you so much. Go get him tonight.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. There he is. Bob Melvin right here on